Okay, so we are going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Healthy Hospital Working Group, thank you for joining us today. I would like to welcome our representatives from Ergotron and Acclaim Ability Management. We are so excited to have you join us today for this ergonomics panel. Before we begin, if you haven't had a chance to enter our prize draw for this week, please give the QR code on the screen a scan and respond to the brief questionnaire. This week, we're doing a random draw prize for the wonderful prize by our sponsors. And the prize specifically for this week is a WorkFit sit-stand workstation from Ergotron. We will display this code again at the end of the session, and we will also have it posted in the chat, the link to it. Our first speakers today will be Sarah Bullock and Maya Ram from Ergotron, and they will be discussing how to select and use a sit-stand workstation. Following their presentation, we will have Christina McNeil from Acclaim Ability Management covering Office Chair 101, as well as our final topic, which is a discussion and tips on mental health ergonomics. Feel free to utilize our chat to put any questions into the chat as they arise, and we'll be addressing all of the questions at the end of all of the presentations today. If there's something specific that you would like to ask offline to one of our presenters, we will be including the presenter emails in our chat as well. So without further delay, welcome Sarah and Maya from Ergotron.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having us today, and welcome everybody. We appreciate everybody's time this afternoon. My name is Sarah Bullock. I am the Territory Account Manager here at Ergotron, located in Burlington, Ontario. So I cover the East Coast on our healthcare side. And live in person, we have Maya Ram, and Maya Ram is our clinical showroom manager that does a lot of our live product demonstrations for us. So we wanted to kick it off to kind of show you, and talk through some of the different types of solutions that are available from Ergotron, how to select an appropriate sit-stand option for your particular requirements, some things to kind of look for when it comes to sit-stand, and monitor arms as well. We'll be covering our new trace arm in the presentation as well. And again, if there's any questions or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the chat. We will be hanging on after the presentations are done as well to be able to answer any questions the group may have this afternoon. So just a little bit about Ergotron for those of you that may not know who we are. We've been in this business for about 40 years. We actually pioneered the whole sit-stand evolution, I guess that everybody knows and hears about in the marketplace today. We actually designed the very first sit-stand, which was our WorkFit S product, which is still currently in use, and we still have many clients standardized on that product. And from that, the portfolio has definitely evolved into many different types of sit-stand options. Because from our perspective, not one sit-stand fits all, right? So many people have different types of work setups, like their desk setup is a little bit different. Maybe the type of technology that you're using, you need to be able to accommodate from a mounting perspective and ergonomics perspective as well. And even the quality of the product too. That's one thing that Ergotron really prides ourselves on is our quality and our standardized testing and the components and the certifications that we go through in order to make sure these products are safe for any end user environment. So today, live in person, Maya is going to be demonstrating one of our newer sit-stand products, our WorkFit TX product. And what's kind of unique about this in terms of the sit stands that you see out there in the market is that keyboard tray is sitting below the desk surface. So most of the models you will see on the market, the keyboard tray will actually sit on top, which for most users, your desk height is maybe already potentially too tall for a seated typing position to get your wrists at comfortable, in that neutral position where it's 90 degrees or slightly below when you're in a seated typing setup. So Maya is demonstrating there on our WorkFit TX unit as she's sitting there typing on the keyboard tray there. That is an adjustable keyboard tray as well. So you do have a little bit of adjustment on that. You have a slight negative tilt that you can instill on the keyboard tray also. And there is about 2.5 inches of height adjustment as well. So again, we're trying to maximize the ergonomics features of the sit-stand product to accommodate a wide range of user heights. And Maya will show you there how it kind of adjusts. In terms of the sit-stand unit itself, there's actually 2 hand levers on either side that you would just squeeze and lift the desk up to your appropriate height. So with this unit here, it has about 17 inches of height adjustability on it. And then you do get that extra 2 inches of that keyboard tray height. We have paired it with our monitor riser kit that you see there. So that one actually has a dual monitor set up on there, but we do have a single option, and we do have a laptop accessory where you could do a single and a laptop side by side. And that gives you an additional 5 inches of range as well. So that way, when you are setting up your sit stand unit, you're properly adjusting the height on the work surface, the keyboard tray, and the displays to make sure that it's at a comfortable viewing position for your unique requirements. So for us, when it comes to some tips and tricks in terms of how you set it up, we recommend that your monitors are at least an arm's length away or about 20 inches away from your eyesight. So that way you have that comfortable view. It's not too close to the user or not too far away where you're squinting and causing kind of, those uncomfortable headaches and pains and stresses, so to speak, with bad positioning on the monitors. They do have a slight tilt as well. So for users that have fluorescent lighting in the background, that could tend to cause eye strain if there's that kind of weird glare that's showing up on your displays. So with that particular model there, you can slightly tilt it as well to reduce that glare and help with any of those headaches and things like that that tend to come up when you're not in a proper ergonomic setup there. Maya's demonstrating there that you can rotate the monitors as well, so you can put it into portrait or landscape mode. So for those that maybe do a lot of documentation or spreadsheet work or things like that, they may like to have it in that portrait mode to be able to see that data much more clearly. And there's our WorkFit TX. And this is designed to be almost a desktop replacement, because you can see it's a large work surface there. So it's about 37 by 27 inches in size. And it's really designed to have everything on top of the work surface. So any sort of pens or a phone or anything like that, it can all accommodate and sit on top of that desk and move with you as you're moving up and down. For us, in terms of creating movements, we highly encourage that if you are investing in a sit stand desk, that you are moving it up and down. So you're not constantly in a seated stationary position at all times. For us, we recommend the 30-30 switch, but it really depends on how your body reacts, right? So we want to make sure you're listening to your body as you're using your sit stand unit, because we don't want you standing, all day, because that's not, really comfortable for most of us to be on our feet and standing in one position at all times. But with the 30-30, it's usually 30 minutes seated and 30 minutes standing. But again, you listen to your body. Maybe it's 20 and 10, or maybe it's, you kind of switch it up, 15 and 15, whatever works best for you. But it's just more so incorporating the sitting and the standing, that extra movement to get your body moving, get the blood flowing. It also improves productivity because you're less kind of tired and sluggish from sitting for an extended period of time as well. So that's kind of, our sit stand unit there, our WorkFit TX. And also from a deployment perspective, it does ship fully assembled out of the box, which is kind of nice too. Really, the only assembly required would be to add that monitor riser kit, which is super easy to install, probably less than half an hour to get it all set up for you. So great product there. The other thing I would point out too is that with that WorkFit TX is it moves up and down on the desk footprint. So there's no weird cantilevering out that you will see with other sit stand units on the market, which tend to be really bad for your back. If you're pulling all of that weight towards you, that's creating a lot of pressure on your lower back. But also from a tip perspective, if you're leaning on it, it could potentially topple over, which could produce many more injuries, which we certainly don't want. So that's why with our particular units, we design them to be within the footprint of the desk. That way it's much more stable from a weight perspective. And if you do tend to lean on it, it's not going to tip over and collapse upon yourself. So that's our WorkFit TX. And what's super exciting about this product is we're actually doing this as part of our giveaway. So if you did scan that QR code and did enter our draw, we are doing a WorkFit TX prize pack with the monitor riser kit. So good luck to those that have entered into our contest, and hopefully you'll be the lucky winner of that particular model. And after that, we're going to move over to our new monitor arm, our trace arm. So this is our new trace arm here. This is in a dual setup, but we do have this available as a single. And what's great about this particular monitor arm, it's featured on one of our full height adjustable tables, our WorkFit D product, with our undermounted keyboard tray underneath there. But this one here, it gives you great extension range. So you can actually see that Maya is lifting and lowering it. It's about 11 inches of height adjustability on it. The extension range is about 15 inches, so you can really kind of pull that display close to you or tuck it in behind you as well, really close up to the post that it operates on there behind you. And even from a collaboration perspective, that maximum tilt that Maya's showing there with the monitors is great. So it's, again, if you need to collaborate or show content to somebody that's, sitting across from you, you can easily rotate that display back and forth. So it's kind of a nice feature. It's also showing the panning as well of the monitors too. So be able to reduce that glare also on the displays is a nice added feature on the Trace monitor arm itself. And then it nicely tucks up right alongside that post there. So it really kind of frees up the area there and gives you that good focal depth as well with that 20 inches of view as well. So it's a newer product for us. And what's great about this too is that you can convert them later on. So say you decide to purchase a single and you wanted to convert it to a dual, we actually sell the accessory adapter kits for it. So that way you can easily do that with this particular unit. So it's kind of nice. You're future-proofing your investment, so to speak. So that's the new Trace arm. But again, with Ergotron, we have lots of different monitor arm options as well, right? I think we have, I don't know, over 30 different models available in our portfolio with lots of different accessories too. So if you're a laptop monitor user, we can get that laptop display at proper eye level, aligned with your display with our laptop tray, and still get that height adjustability on your monitors as well, and that tilt capability too. So some really nice kind of features to our products that are, available on our website. So if you do want to check out anything, get a chance to poke around on there, you can see that we provide all the specifications and details on a lot of our products. We've done a lot of videos too to kind of show you how to adjust the monitors and where we recommend you place the monitor arms and things like that when mounting them to your particular units. So some kind of nice, tips and tricks that are available on the ergotron.com website for you to check out. And again, if there's any questions, if you ever need help with any sample units or want to test anything out, our team is happy to accommodate that. We do that a lot for our customers. So if there's particular, trace arm or monitor arm or sit stand desk that, your user group would like to test out prior to committing, by all means, take us up on that offer, because we want to make sure that when you're selecting, a monitor arm or sit stand product, that you're comfortable using it, you know how to use it, you understand the benefits and the features of it, and that you can feel it when you're actually using it throughout your particular workday. So that's kind of, a nice kind of bonus that, we like to offer our customers as, we talk about our different solutions and what have you. I will say that we do have a other showroom as well. It's part of our clinical team. So we do a lot of medical carts and wall mounts, which you may be familiar with from Ergotron. Today, we're focusing a little bit more on our sit stand and ergonomics piece, but we do have those particular products too in a separate showroom that we can always book subsequent time with the group as well. So we can take you through some of the different options and talk about some of the ergonomics and some of the features on the carts and the wall mounts as well. So I think that kind of wraps it up for our presentation. Again, if there's any questions or anything like that, I know my contact information has been dropped into the chat there. And again, I'll be hanging on at the end of the presentation too to answer any questions the group may have. And feel free to reach out. We're happy to support, the groups on the call today with any ergonomic needs, requirements, questions, what have you. Our team is here and happy to support you. So thank you for joining us, and don't forget to enter the contest as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Maya. That was great to have a view of how everything looks and moves around with the WorkFit TX as well as the monitor arm for the track. And so we're now going to move on to the next section of our ergonomics panel, but please, if you do have any questions for Sarah or Maya, please pop them into the chat and we'll be sure to get to them at the end of the session. So next we have Jan Marie Prato, the Director of Operation Employer Services, who will be introducing Acclaim Ability Management and our next presenter.
Thanks, Chantel. For those of you that aren't familiar, Acclaim Ability Management is a disability management company. We work with employers across Canada, and specifically we work within healthcare. OHA in Ontario, we work with a variety of different healthcare providers in Ontario, providing support in their sick leave programs, but also supporting them through a variety of other needs. We've been in business since 1993, and we support sick leave programs as well as occupational health needs, vaccination verifications, physical and cognitive demands analyses, and a lot of different other programs that you might be familiar with. You may have even used our services in the past. I wanted to introduce our presenter today, Christina, who will be talking to us about chair ergonomics and also mental health ergonomics. So I'll throw it over to Christina to take away, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jean-Marie, for the nice introduction to Acclaim. So today I'm going to be doing two different presentations. The first of which, here we go. The first of which is going to be Chair Health 101, so ergonomic properties for your work and home office setup. But before I get into that, I just want to maybe give you a bit of a background on myself. So I operate both in the mental health sphere as well as the physical health sphere. I'm a trained kinesiologist, but also I did further education in counseling psychology. So I've worked both at, a cardiac rehab institute in Ottawa, as well as running a private practice for mental health therapy. So today both those worlds are going to come and collide. So if you see me switching between the presentations, that's how I'm informed on both. I just thought that was worthwhile to mention. So today for chair health, we're going to start with chair health in the ideal seated position. We're going to talk about what to look for when browsing for chairs. I'm not going to specifically go into what websites to use or where to shop for those chairs, but if you have any questions afterwards, please let me know. We're going to go into angles and distances for our chairs and towards our screens, and health issues associated with poor seated positioning. So I like to talk about it as a bottom-up health approach to stability and physical health. So really, when we're looking at the body, whether we're standing or sitting, it's from the muscles and the bones from the bottom of our body all the way up. So if we have an issue anywhere along that route, we're going to have issues, physical health issues, mental health issues, the whole way up. So really the feet support the knees support the hips support the core and the back, and then we have the shoulders and the arms and the head. So if I have poor stability in my core, I'm going to be slouching, right? I'm going to be leaning over. So that's why we want to make sure all of the points are really checked off in terms of when you're selecting a chair, or if you have a chair at home, kind of what's the most important to look into for your chair. So the key criteria in selecting an ergonomic chair. So I'm going to start again, that bottom-up approach. We're going to start with the wheels. So I really appreciated that we had the sit-stand desk presentation first, because that informs the type of chair that we want as well, right? So if we are switching that, 20-10 or 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off from seated to standing, we do want to make sure our chair can glide so we can move around our desk, access our phone, but also to slide our chair out to stand, and then to come back into our chair. If we're shuffling or scooting, it's going to cause extra grief, extra issues, and as you'll hear in the later presentation, extra frustration that leads to poor mental health. So we want wheels that glide easily over surfaces to avoid scooting or shuffling. We want to, for this seat, we want to look for a sloped or a waterfall edge of the seat. And what I mean by that is literally coming over to the edge. We don't want our legs to be lifted up. We don't want any extra torsion on our knees. And we want our feet firmly planted on the floor. So we want to make sure that we can have that height, depth, and tilt adjustable. So for myself, I'm a shorter individual. So I find that, I need something with a little more boost and a little more, like I need a chair that's higher up and I need to use that footrest or that foot support, or I need to have a chair that can really go down and I make sure from my hip to my knee length that it's not a long chair. Otherwise, I'm putting extra pressure on my knees and I'm actually not using my feet to support my body. So again, that bottom up approach. So that's just going to cause all the issues from my knees up if I don't have that proper seat. In terms of lumbar support, so a lot of us have back pain, or as we get tired, our core gets tired throughout the day and we slouch or we contract. We move lower on our chair. So that back support, and ideally we want an adjustable lumbar support, something that can be, firm and out and in. There's also removable if you don't have enough support on your chair. There are removable cushions that you can strap around to your chair to add something if you're at a home office setup and maybe for financial reasons it's not possible to invest in a new chair. That's something you can add on to your chair. So we want to make sure that our lumbar support is strong enough that we prevent fatigue, that we can have the proper height and the depth. So again, for myself, I'm shorter and my torso is shorter. So I want to make sure that that lumbar support really is in the curve of my back. I don't want it up higher because it will force me over. If it's lower, it's not going to really do the trick, right? We want it right in that ideal position. And I'll show you on the next slide, you'll see some pictures on what this could look like. In terms of a backrest, we also want that height adjusted, right? So we don't want it to be too high for our shoulders. Just like, you see in a car, sometimes it's not adjustable and then you have the headrest and everything at the wrong position and it's uncomfortable. We want to make sure it fits up to the top of our shoulders or approximately there. We want the tilt, if we have back pain especially, we want the tilt set to 30 degrees. So we don't want to be leaning over or forced to lean over. We actually want the balance of our body and our core to be leaned against the chair. So our feet inform or support the weight into our knees and into our legs, and we want our buttocks and our back to be supported into the chair. So we are not contracting, we are not working those muscles all day, because the more that we use those muscles as we're sitting, we're going to be tired and then we're going to get into postures that aren't healthy for us. There is a suggestion that if you have back pain or nerve pain, maybe some sciatica pain, that we want to tilt the chair back to up to 135 degrees. So I'll show you on the next slide what that would look like. And it just means that if we're sitting upright, maybe there's more pressure on our nerves. So that pressure we want to release by leaning back, because we're stretching out our muscles, we're stretching out the compression within our bones, everything. So it's better to lean back. In terms of armrests, we want them also height and width adjustable. So we want, again, that 90 degrees from our elbow to our keyboard. And for some of us, like I have a narrower frame, so I put that in there because I actually need ones that come into my body further. If they're too far apart, I will actually be moving my shoulders and therefore tightening my muscles up on my shoulders, which will create further injury. So we want to make sure those shoulders are relaxed and they're sitting on the chair and we can just focus on typing. And really the power and the strength comes from our fingers, because our wrists will also be supported if our shoulders are in, if our keyboard's in the right place, if our elbows are into our sides. For some of us, we might need some neck support, depending on our physical abilities, depending on where we are in life with our health. So we just want to make sure that, again, that neck support comes to the back of our head and it does not angle our head down or angle our head up. We want to be looking at our screen. Our eyes should be ideally at the top level of our screen, and we want to be looking either directly at our screen at the top of our monitor and then down to our screen. And I'll show you the angles on the next slide so we can talk about that. So you can see here, we're looking down to the middle of our screen, and we want to make sure that our neck isn't arced up or that we're not twisted to the side. So again, as we saw with the sit-stand desks, we really want to make sure that our monitors are directly in front of our face. That 18 to 24 inches, or what was suggested earlier, was 20 inches. We want to make sure that our chair can support us to be fully relaxed, fully supported with those distances. In this picture here on the left, there are some recommendations. However, that would be a recommendation for that individual's height, right? So that's 16 to 20 inches. Mine might not be 16 to 20 inches. Mine might actually be less than that. And then I would use, and if not, if the chair doesn't go down far enough, really we could use a footrest to increase the height of our feet to therefore make sure that we have that support. We do want the knees at that 90 degrees. And as you can see on the left picture, the knees are actually extended past the chair. That's really important. And this one's not a waterfall edge on the chair on the left side, but you can see on the right side, that is that waterfall edge. So the whole point of chair ergonomics is really to relax the shoulders, to have back and core support, to have arm support. So when we're typing, we're not actually reaching and we're not using our shoulders, our arms, and our wrists to type. And when we're looking at our monitors, we want to make sure that everything's fully supported so we can just turn our eyes and we're not turning our neck or twisting to touch anything. Sorry about that. And then again, feet flat on the floor and thighs horizontal to the floor. Again, if the floor is too low and your chair is too high, you would need a footrest too. And we do recommend, like, you can have your feet flat on that footrest, but they can also be arched up a little bit. So our toes are up further towards the ceiling than our heels. That's okay too, because it really pushes us back into that chair. And again, it's all about direction of pull and direction of push and where the force is coming from. So I'm going to finish this part of the presentation just in a very general way, talking about health issues associated with poor chair positioning. So we know that, of course, there's going to be physical health issues if we're not well supported. So just a couple of anecdotes. Previously, I've worked with individuals who, like myself, their legs did not touch the floor with the height of their chair, but they didn't use a footrest. So what actually happened with some of those individuals is, well, actually the worst case scenario is that they had a tear in their hip because their thigh was actually getting pulled out of their hip. So after a year of sitting in a chair that was not comfortable, they had a very severe injury that needed significant rehabilitation and recovery. And I say that, like, for me, it was very surprising to see that over time, that force can pull so hard that it can actually tear. And the individual did not notice because it was over time. It's gradual. Well, my legs have always been sore at work, right? So it's important to not just brush it off, to actually get that assessment or do that assessment yourself. Get somebody to take a picture and look at how we can set our body up, set our workstation up to be supported at work. And again, that bottom up approach to stability. So if our feet aren't touching the floor, we're going to have issues all over. So if we're looking at, the importance of different characteristics of a chair, again, I would encourage to go from that bottom up approach. We know that, so when our body's tired and we're not well supported in our chair or standing at our desk, it would create lower energy because we get tired. So we might have some pain, which leads to exhaustion, which leads to pain. And when we're distracted and we're not focused because we're worried about our body, that can also translate to work performance issues because we're not as focused on our work, right? And so it's interesting. I'm going to talk in the next presentation about this duality between the physical health and the mental health, because I think it's really important to set ourselves up appropriately for both. In terms of mental health side effects, I always bring in the mental health. So when we're tired at work, when our body is physically tired, when we feel that our body is sore, it's achy, we're less likely to feel good about the work that we're doing. So we might have lower energy, we might have some loss of interest either in work or other things. I don't know if you all do the same, but sometimes, when I'm tired at the end of the day, I go home and I don't really want to do anything in the evening. Well, if we're well supported at work and our body isn't physically tired, maybe we want to do more of those activities that bring us joy and happiness. So our bodies can have sleep disturbances, psychomotor changes. So we're looking at agitation or retardation, some low mood or decreased concentration, and of course substance use, whether that's extra caffeine, extra coffee, because we're tired, or other substances. So we're going to do the questions and answers at the end, and I'm just going to jump right into our next presentation. So at the end of both presentations, we will, sorry, it's just not opening for some reason. Give me one moment. at the end of both presentations, we will have all of us available for questions to be asked. There we go. All right, so here we are. So mental health ergonomics, I feel like that might be a new term for a lot of us. I always talk about mental wellness or mental health, and when we combine it with ergonomics, it's really interesting to think about how we can structure our day to make our body and our mind feel better. So this isn't just during our workday. I said on the slide that it's before, after, and during. So we want to make sure before our workday we feel connected, we feel happy, and again after our workday. So that's that coming into our day and decompression after our day. So we're going to talk about the mind-body connection, as I referred to earlier. Oh, sorry, I'm going to leave on this slide. So for the mind-body connection, what I really mean is this physical connection between how we feel physically and the duality of what we're feeling or what we experience cognitively. So I think that's really important, just to acknowledge how our thoughts and our feelings can be expressed in a physical way. So how stress manifests in the body, how happiness manifests in the body. How feeling that our day is really busy, how that manifests in the body. If I'm starting my day already feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to be physically, like we can see it in the body when we look at different individuals coming in. We might be slouching more if we're not feeling so confident. We might be sitting up more straight if we feel more confident. And it's kind of fun to just watch your coworkers around your office and just notice how they're expressing themselves that day. You know, our body gives us these indicators personally, and we can see with others how well we're doing and how well we're feeling. So why does mental health matter? Prior to the pandemic, here at Acclaim, we saw mental health accounted for 20 to 30% of disability absences across Ontario. And when you think about the duality of physical and mental health, I wonder how much more was expressed physically than mentally. But that's our actual statistics of what was reported, what was diagnosed by physicians. But since the pandemic, we've seen an uptick in mental health related absences. So we see 30 to 40% now of disability claims related to mental health, and even in some hospitals or some cases up to 60% disability absences related to mental health. So I think that's really important to take note of, that us as a community, us as healthcare workers, regardless of our role, regardless of responsibility, this is the primary focus that we should be looking into, to feel more supported at work, to feel more happier in our lives, to feel more well, right? Mental wellness. So there is the importance of taking care of our mental health throughout the day and connecting to ourselves. I know that we're talking about ergonomics in the workplace, but part of those ergonomics is actually disconnecting and focusing on ourselves so that we're not feeling overwhelmed with what comprises our workday, right? And again, that's that reciprocal relationship, or mutual impact is another term that I like to say, between mental health and physical health. So our thoughts affect our bodies affect our thoughts. If I'm feeling really tired, it's going to be, if I'm really feeling really physically tired, it's going to be harder for me to pick myself up and feel happy and feel good and feel rewarded by my workday or my personal life. And again, the opposite. So what we see, you know, sometimes it might be a situation of back pain that manifests into mental health symptoms. So we have to prevent and manage both symptoms to actually concurrently to actually recover. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, the back pain or the dissatisfaction and frustration with work or with our personal lives, right? So that mutual impact can increase both the psychological and physical health burdens. So both on the medical system, both on the practitioners. So it's good. Like, we need a balanced approach, essentially, is what I'm saying. We need a holistic and balanced approach to treatment and to prevention. Yeah, as we feel, I just thought of something as I was speaking. As we feel physical effects in the body, it does actually, like if we're already experiencing a mental health issue or something with mental wellness, maybe a negative symptom of mental wellness, the more physical symptoms we feel and the more mental health symptoms we feel, of course, they're going to impact each other. It's going to be a more complex recovery. It might be a longer recovery. And we just want to acknowledge that if I'm already feeling something and then let's say I get an injury, it's going to compound. So it's really important when we are noticing different changes in our life, in our work, that we take action right away. Kind of what happens when our mental health goes ignored, right? The more sensations we develop. And the responsibility is on us as individuals, as professionals, in all of our roles in life, but also there is a responsibility that we hold, or shared responsibility with coworkers, that if we notice something, say something. Right? Not saying to call your coworkers out, but if you notice that they're behaving differently, maybe check in with them and see how they're doing. If somebody's been off work for a period, it might be important to, for a disability absence or what have you, maybe they're taking bereavement, maybe they're taking an extended vacation because they're burnt out. It's really important to check in with those individuals when they're off work because I'm sure all of us feel it that when we're away from something, it's really hard to initiate and get back into it, right? That's why routine is so important. That's why patterns are so important in our lives. And I just thought I'd mention that here. So what is a cognitive break during our workday? We're going to talk about physical versus cognitive breaks. So physical breaks, obviously, our bodies become tired when they're overworked and we're more likely to experience physical injuries. So we need to sit down and elevate our limbs, hydrate and nourish our bodies. So again, that well-balanced approach. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Do I need some water, right? The basics that we want to take care of to support our mental health. Now, when I say cognitive break, it's not shutting off your brain, and sometimes there's some confusion around that. Our brains also need nourishment, is what I mean. How do we fill ourselves up? So if we're looking at like mental rest from complex cognitive tasks, I wonder where you see that in your workday. Like, how can you structure that? If you're in a meeting for an hour, do you take a rest before? Do you take a rest after? We need space to connect to ourselves, so disconnect from the needs, wants, and emotions of others. So I think in healthcare that's particularly important because we become these helpers, we become these caregivers, and we derive a lot of satisfaction, a lot of pride in our work because we are helping. When we help others, we soothe ourselves, we feel good. The problem sometimes happens when we give too much. So too much of our energy without tuning back into ourselves, without focusing on ourselves. So that's why those micro breaks or cognitive breaks throughout the day are really important. We want to move from that logical thinking, this is what the patient needs, this is what I have to do, these are all the administrative steps in my day, or maybe physical steps in my day, depending on your role. So again, moving from that thinking logical approach to the feeling or that like right brain approach. We want to check in with ourselves. So how do we do this? This sounds great, Christina, but how do we actually do this? Well, let's talk about what that looks like first. So positive mental health really looks like flexibility with responses to stressful situations. So if we are dealing with an upset coworker or a client, a patient, somebody as we're driving into work, they're honking their horns at us. If we're also responding in anger and honking or what have you, maybe we're not feeling so great. Maybe we're not able to flexibly respond with ease to those situations. They make us feel angry, they make us feel tighter. So we want to be able to be flexible and open. The ability to respond to situations as opposed to being reactive. So thoughtful responses. Somebody says something and we snap, right? That as opposed to, oh, I haven't considered that. Or, actually, I don't really enjoy talking about this situation. How we can actually respond to those situations or to comments from coworkers or situations at work in our personal life. That's also a sign of positive mental health. feeling good about ourselves and pride in our work or other areas of our life. So again, we don't want to just make this about work. This is holistic. How I feel, if I feel that there's a purpose to what I'm doing, so feeling a sense of purpose, if there's a purpose to what I'm doing, if I feel pride in my work, if I feel accomplished in my day, that's going to carry that energy is going to carry into the rest of my day, the rest of my life. And the more we feel that we have these successes or these moments that we feel pleased with what we're doing or with ourselves, the better we're going to feel overall. And the biggest one that you're going to see me talk about in terms of what we can actually do during our workday is feeling connected to others and to the world. So our work environments sometimes are kind of like a petri dish or a perfect environment that we want to shake up. Oh, we want to shake up a little bit. There's a way of being, there's a way of acting, and we want to make sure that we remember the life or the us that exists out of that. So things that we could use to actually take care of our mental health or promote positive mental health. The first one that I'm going to talk about is body scanning. So that's like a head to toe body scan. So physical ergonomics, we're talking bottom up. In terms of mental health, we're talking head down. So you can, feel free to do this with me right now if you are sitting in your chair or if you're taking a few minutes away from work. And I will encourage you to look away from the screen if you feel like it, or look out a window at nature if you can, or just the outside world. So we're going to go from our head, closing our eyes all the way and checking through our body. Do I feel any sensations? Do I feel sore? Do I feel a headache? What's actually going physically on in my body? Do I feel some chest tightness? And just try to take a breath and breathe through that, whatever we're feeling. Sometimes we get caught up in the routine of our daily schedules that we don't even take a time to take a breath. And the beauty of this is that whether we're in a busy nursing station, whether we're walking the hallways or we're walking between buildings or we're at home, this can happen anywhere. Just going through the body and checking in with what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what's that sensation? Is there tightness? Is there looseness? Sometimes we can't get that privacy to tune out of everything when we're at work. So I have had some healthcare workers that I've worked with in the past who actually go into the washroom and go into the bathroom stall, and they will close their eyes because it's darker and they can actually be have a physical barrier between them and their work atmosphere and work environment. And they will do this in the washroom. So if you see everyone at lunch today going and stretching in the bathroom, that might be why, because I'm encouraging it. Something else, connecting to others. We get so sometimes lost into our worlds, especially, I'm going to talk about this in a second, especially with virtual work. We get so lost in what we're doing that it's really important just to feel that we're not so alone. We're not so isolated. So that could be, a few extra minutes at the water cooler at work. That could be chatting with someone coming into our day or at the end of our day. That's really important. And that kind of goes into the next point about disconnecting from technology. Like, what are we using in our workday? Are we using a computer? Are we using an iPad maybe and typing in notes? It's our relationships during our workday have become more I guess, close knit with technology than they have with the outer world or with others. So, being conscious of that and trying to disconnect, take a break from looking at a screen, as I just encouraged you to. And I see a few actually looking out the window right now, and I think that that's really important and really lovely, especially when we're working at home, because when we're at home, we tend to get in, it's our, what do they call that? That like the bottomless pit of work. We tend to get so deep into work, we forget to take those breaks. So what I actually suggest for working at home or whether it's in the office environment is for these virtual work environments or physical in the hospital work environments, to take a break from the screen. So to look out the window, even just the change in lighting, even if we have a blue light filter, that change in lighting from staring at a backlit screen to staring out into something that's bright is really important. And again, it feels grounding. It feels like we're in our body, we're in that feeling mode, and we're not in that go, go, go thinking mode where we just shut off our emotion because we have to be productive. some things that, you know, I also personally use at home. If you have a pet, taking a dog for a walk or taking an animal for a walk. You know, just that excuse to get out of your house. Because, you know, sometimes we're not always the best at doing that. Timing and structuring breaks and putting them into your work calendar is really important. You know, even for some individuals that, you know, switch between a sit and stand desk, we like to say set a timer, set a reminder in your work calendar, something that, you know, regardless, it'll go off every day at the same time to remind you to go do that. Something that it doesn't become an extra work task. You know, if I say on my phone, it's an alarm every day at 10 a.m. to go and get up and do something. You know, I set it up once and then I never have to worry about it again. But that physical and mental break from the screen, that physical and mental break from work, even just for a few minutes, even just to go to the washroom and check in about, am I nourished? Do I need food? Do I need water? That's really important for our overall physical health and our mental health. I'm going to challenge you to avoid disconnecting and isolating, to maybe talk with somebody outside of work at least once per day. So a quick text, a phone call. I prefer not social media because, again, it's another screen, but just connecting to your world for even a second. Has that, it sounds so simple, but it has that reminder that we are a whole person. We do have a life outside of our workday. And the more that we can combine those two people, you know, the outside of our work and who we are in our work, I think the better that we can feel. So that's a big message for me, is just making sure that you're taking those mental breaks, that you know, it helps us feel more fulfilled with our work or fulfilled in our lives, and really tapping into anything that makes you feel good during your day. I was sharing with a colleague recently, I keep a little notepad at my desk and I have some paint markers. And so I might doodle when I'm feeling that I'm not feeling very productive or I'm feeling unfocused, doing something for our mental health, something artistic, something movement based, you know, stretching, those 10-minute desk stretches that you've been doing this month. I think that's excellent for our mental health because it makes us tune into our bodies. It makes us tune into how we're feeling. So all the things that we shared today are really just aspects of mindfulness. How am I tuning into this moment? How am I tuning into my body? How am I feeling? And how can I actually protect my mental health to keep myself feeling the way that I want to feel? And, you know, if you're finding yourself tuning out of, you know, at the end of the day, tuning out and maybe going on Netflix or Amazon Prime binge watching spree, you know, maybe that's a sign to say that I need to be doing something else because I'm feeling so exhausted. So these little I guess, like breaks throughout our day or structures that we can set up throughout our day, and consistently with some sort of alarm or in our calendar can be really impactful long term, especially when it becomes a habit. So we have to remind ourselves enough that we get used to it. And then, so my work day, I very easily take my notepad out, go for a walk, force myself to get up and get water in the morning and in the afternoon so I don't get too deep into my work. And that also makes us more productive at work when we're taking those breaks. When we look at, you know, time that we can actually solidly focus and length of cognition, that we can be actively performing cognitive tasks throughout the day without taking a break. This kind of aligns with that. So I do recommend, you know, if more than once per morning or more than once in the afternoon, that would be great. You know, even every 45 minutes, every hour, just getting up for a few seconds or switching your position and stretching and looking out a window can really have profound impacts. So if you have any questions about anything related to this, feel free to contact us. Feel free to contact me. We will have some questions now. So again, you know, feel free to type something into the chat and we'll put our contact information there too, and you can follow up with us if there's anything that you want to hear more about. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much to our presenters for sharing your knowledge with us today, and to Ergotron and Acclaim Ability Management for sponsoring the Healthy Workplace Month conference. I'm actually just going to make sure that I share the slide with the QR code just now as well. And we will get into some questions. There have been some questions that have come through the chat as well. And I also, just before we get into the question period, For anyone that's looking for a quick office break, you can join our 10-minute desk size sessions. We're having them every day this week at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So there is one in just over an hour coming up as well. And if you haven't had a chance to fill out our survey for this week's prize draw, please scan the QR code or copy the link into the chat to do so, which will be copied into the chat. And we'll get into some of the questions that we've had come through. And I think Bill's also going to comment on some of them too. But just because we were talking about the WorkFit and the TX, that is the prize for this week, there were a couple of questions that did come in related to that. So one of the questions was someone was asking if they could hear a little bit more about how the desktop version is attached and secured to the existing desk. So I'm assuming that's for the TX, the WorkFit TX.
So that particular unit actually sits right on top of your desk. So there's no mounting required to mount it down to a tabletop or anything like that. The reason for that being is that the unit itself is actually quite heavy. It's weighted in design, so that way it won't ever slide off or anything like that, because it is about 40 to 50 pounds in weight. So it is pretty stable and durable if it just sits right on top of your desk surface. I would say that the minimum depth that it should sit on is about 24 inches. So if you're working with a desk that's slightly shorter than that, then I would look at maybe a different type of solution, like our WorkFit S or WorkFit A product that's designed for more shallower desk depth spaces.
Great. That answers another question that I had on here as well, which was, what is the desk footprint that is required for the TX, and what do I do if there's a smaller footprint? And so the S clamps to the front of the desk, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So that one has like a clamp that goes right in the front of the desk, and it does have that drop down keyboard tray functionality as well. So you can move the desk up and down. It's about 18 inches in height adjustability. It does have a smaller work surface, but does have a work surface there. So you can have your papers and pens and things like that with you at all times as you're moving up and down. And then also does have that 5 inches of height adjustability for your display also.
Okay, great. Bill, step in on any ones. I think there's been some that have come into the chat and I just can't see them, but if there's any ones that you see, I'll look through the other ones to come up.
Nothing else is coming through the chat, just the ones we already have indicated. So I guess the next question that we had about to stand was the price points and the average price point for the devices.
Yeah, so because Ergotron doesn't sell direct, we work with our reseller network here across Canada. So whoever you have your buying contracts set up with, we do participate on a lot of those GPOs, which I think a lot of the individuals on the call are probably familiar with in terms of Health Pro and Kinetic and OECM and such. I will say the MSRP on the WorkFit TX unit is probably around $650 to $700 for the desk portion, and then you're looking at probably additional $100 to $150 for the monitor riser kit. But again, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your preferred reseller to get the proper quoting for that, because we do help support our healthcare clients with preferred pricing through those resellers that hold those GPO contracts.
That's great. Thank you.
So I just did have one come in through the chat, Chantel. It's asking about chairs. The question specifically is what I'd like to ask about other types of ergonomically marketed chairs, like ball chairs or backless stools, and what your thoughts are on those.
Oh, ball, I see. So like a yoga ball. Well, it's interesting because I was actually thinking about bringing that into the presentation, and I thought maybe it was too much material. But in terms of ball chairs, like really, again, you're going to use the same ergonomics. Like you really want to make sure that your feet are flat on the floor if you are going to use a ball chair, because it's are more active, like that's the whole point of a ball chair, right? Is that you are more mindful and you are more focused when you're trying to sit upright and trying to maintain your posture. So that could also be more exhausting if you don't have that core strength. If you feel that, especially if you're someone with ADHD or someone that, has focusing and attention issues, you might need that ball to switch in and out. But ergonomically, the best thing is really going to be a chair that has that support in your back. Because again, that bottom up approach, right? If we're sitting on a ball, how do we know that we're not tilting back so far? How do we know that we're not tilting forward too far? It's really hard to maintain that posture, but it does keep us very active, and it does force us to sit upright because of the shape of it. So it kind of like there are pros and cons to it, and again, it is a personal decision. You know, based on like I think it's very individualized is what I'm going to say. Like it depends on the whole cognitive and physical picture of your body. But I would recommend a rolly chair. Is there anything that Ergotron wanted to add to that? I saw you opening and about to speak. Feel free to chime in too.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard kind of mixed reviews about ball chairs, especially, because as you said, and I think you touched upon this, is that it really requires a lot of active attention when you are sitting on a ball chair, so that you're not awkwardly, again, like kinking or causing any sort of weird strain on your hips or your back. We actually aren't in the chair business, so really, I can't really speak to chairs as an expert, panelist here today, but I have heard kind of mixed reviews about the ball chair in terms of, making sure that you really have a proper posture when you are sitting on that, so that you're not, again, causing any more strain and issues, with your hips and your lower back and such. But I think the concept is kind of neat, I mean, again, it really activates that core and does what it's supposed to, but you really just have to be mindful of making sure that you're using it correctly at all times.
And something I might add to that, I just thought is, if you do have that as your home office setup, get somebody to take a picture to see those angles, to see that compression, and from not just from the front or the side, but a top down or closer to the floor. It really helps us to understand how we're sitting during our workday. Yeah.
And I would assume also duration is something to kind of keep in mind with that as well. My understanding is those ball chairs are for shorter durations of time, likely because of the activation and the fatigue that would come with that, and then the awkward postures as well. But I wonder if that's part of the cons that sometimes come through as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
We did have a couple of specific questions that did come through. So one of them is that there's an individual that had an ergonomic assessment, and there were some recommendations on settings for the chair for them, but they're finding that it's uncomfortable for them right now. So they're just wondering, like, what is the best way to try and figure out what changes could be made to, or adjustments that should be made for it, while still keeping some of the preferred settings for it. So they were saying that having their knees at 90-degree angle is causing a bit too much weight that they're feeling. And that the angled footrest that was recommended for them isn't providing the relief that they need. So they were just wondering if there's any tips that could be appreciated to kind of assist with that discomfort that they're experiencing with their chair.
Of course. So I think that, I'm unmuted. I think something important just to take into account when we're looking at these individual situations is, speaking with your doctor, speaking with a physio, anyone who's treating, because maybe there is an injury there that we're not acknowledging in these questions. So I just want to put that out there, that there might be an assessment that needs to happen, or there might be further exploration of any medical issue. If you're finding that it's uncomfortable, though, of course, you can make those adjustments to feel more comfortable. But I would, so if you feel that your knees at 90-degree take too much pressure, you can rotate them down. You can have a bit of an angle down towards your knees. We just want that angle to be gentle. We do not want our knees hanging off the edge of the chair, and that foot support is really important if that's the case. Sometimes when we're saying that it's uncomfortable, it might actually be an indication of the body, though, saying that I've been sitting for too long, and I need to get up and I need a break. And I just want to acknowledge that, even for myself, I find my footrest, my footstool, it's great. And I feel very active and focused. And then at times I just don't even want my feet on there. And I think that's my body getting tired. So we want to listen to those cues. We want to, again, tune into our bodies. Like that's, if our body's giving us a sign and screaming, I'm not comfortable, get up and move around and then see. And also, if you are making some adjustments, get somebody to take a picture or, take a picture yourself and see what's actually going on. Because maybe we think that, our armrests are at the right height. But if we've shifted our keyboard, if, our phone's shifted, the whole office setup shifts around that, right? So if we have a tilt on our keyboard, I have a tilt on my keyboard, and sometimes I forget to lower my armrests with that. So it is an actively, it's not just one size fits all. It is an actively engaging process to make sure we fit those angles, right? To make sure our arms or our wrists and our forearms are resting on our keyboard, and then our fingers are just typing. So if it is to do with the shoulders, I really want to make sure that those shoulders aren't out. That's something that I see common, is actually the armrest being really far out to the side and not tucking into our sides, because we want those shoulders to be back, we want them relaxed, and we want to have our head pointing up. So I'm not sure if I answered the full question, but those are some things I'd suggest. And if, the chair rest, or sorry, if the footrest actually isn't comfortable, there's lots of different options in terms of what those look like. I've seen anywhere from like these pillow ones at IKEA to something solid with grooves on it that actually your feet can have some grip on. And then also having something that tilts or goes up straight. There's just so many options. I feel free to scour the internet. There's lots of different things I'm sure even I don't know of. But you can look at some ergonomic websites that offer chairs and footrests. Those are probably the best place to start. Yeah. Is there a follow-up question to that? I wonder if that individual has anything else they want to specifically discuss.
I don't think any specific to that. I think you've answered the question well.
Perfect.
I think I'd like to move on to the mental health ergonomics questions. We have a few questions from there. The first one that came up is, what are the most effective 5-minute tools to improve our mental health and mind-body connection?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm going to repeat a few things that I said earlier. One of the things is, looking out a window or looking somewhere that isn't our typical work setup. If you don't have a window, maybe there's a nice view. Here in my office, we have trees in the lobby. So I find just walking out there, even on our way to the washroom, is really grounding. That body scan, so head to toes, really checking in, really, getting in touch with that feeling part of our body. So what is my head feeling? What are my shoulders feeling? Those few minutes can be so impactful. The other thing, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to speak quite quickly, but feel free to email me some of these questions afterwards if they remain. I do a 5-finger check-in too. I don't know if you've seen these. Sometimes they do them in grade schools, but that 5-minute check-in can be, 5-finger check-in can be all of our physical senses. So thinking about a calm place, thinking about a happy place, something that makes me feel good. What is it like? Close your eyes. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it look like? Is the wind blowing? Is it cold? Is it hot? So going through all those senses and really building that imagery, that's a mindfulness technique that I would recommend. And it only takes a few minutes. And then of course there's, your box breathing, or your inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So a full square, and doing that a few times, or visualizing something opening up as you're breathing. So I find visualization, especially when we're at work, is really impactful. And again, maybe that doodling or just mindlessly sketching. It doesn't have to be anything productive. It's just a quick check out and then check back into our work.
That's great. And it does connect to some of the other questions that we had related to that too, about box breathing and also body scans and other meditation practices. And I think the 5-finger one is a really quick one that's really easy to kind of bring to our teams as well. So that's fantastic. I know in some of your talk about mental health ergonomics was the thought of looking outside and seeing a window. For those of us that have offices without windows, what is your recommendation to kind of help with that? And I know that lighting has a big impact on things as well, and in people's moods and how they're feeling during the day. So what kind of suggestions would you have to kind of help emulate that within offices without windows?
Of course. So anything that really helps you to calm down. So, and when I say calm down, I mean relax into our bodies, not that we're all stressed out all the time. So looking away from the screen, whether it's a blank wall, whether it's, you know, an exciting calendar picture, you know, looking away into our physical environment and connecting to the visualization of our physical environment and the sounds of our physical environment, those can be really important. But really that imagery, closing our eyes and taking a few minutes, you know, maybe there's a cottage memory, maybe there's something really exciting that you're looking forward to, closing your eyes and visualizing that, and stepping out of your workspace. So even, you know, if you have a closed door office or you have a cubicle, moving yourself away from that station. And lighting can have a big impact. So sometimes, especially when we're in hospital, we do not have any control over our lighting, but you can put a little, like I find warm lighting on my desk is really helpful. So something that feels a little warm, something that's a little more yellow, something that has nice colors and warm tones and soothing tones, decorating if we're allowed to, setting up our office environment to reflect that is important. Or if we can find a place that maybe we can have lower lighting. So again, sounds funny, but the washroom is something that people use quite commonly to go in because it's not, you know, you can in a stall or in a hallway to the washroom. Sometimes there's like some nice plants and stuff. You know, on the way there can be something that you can tune out. You know, a lot of washrooms too are very institutional. I'm very aware of that. So maybe there's another quiet nook that you can go to. Maybe there's, you know, an area that you can read a book or look at something, you know. There's often those comfy spaces in most work environments. Yeah.
That's great. I know we're over time, but we have one more question. We want to bring back to chairs because always about chairs. So I've heard that there's different chair mechanisms that are out there, like tilt or multi-tilt, pass, synchro tilt. What's the difference? How do I know what to choose for myself? Well, like for this individual.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult sometimes to, like it's overwhelming when we're confronted with all the options. And I think, you know, like I appreciated the sit stand presentation today because it really outlined these like basics. Here's what you can do with the screen. Here's what you can do with the desk. When we start fiddling and adjusting more things, that means more that we have to, when you're looking at those multiple tilts or different, like even the arms can tilt in, can tilt out, and the headrest when there's a four directional tilt, it's more that we have to make sure that we're on top of and we're setting up correctly. So above all, you know, if you are interested in getting an ergonomic assessment or having somebody assess and set you up with that really complex device, of course, you know, that there's merit there. However, I would just stick to the basics. Like you need to be supported. You need to be firmly planted in your chair. You need those angles to not be putting any extra pressure or, you know, some chairs are great and they might work for some bodies, but I've done some assessments even in our own office that, you know, individuals' knees will turn in or will turn out. So we have to make sure that the chair is suited to them. So it, you know, again, the more things that we can change, the more options we have, the more complex and troublesome almost it can be. So, you know, if you look, I'm not sure if we're sharing the slides, but I know that we're sharing the presentation. So if you want to go back to the presentation and look at those images of that ergonomic setup, that's really all that we need to be focused on. If you are finding that there's a specific injury, again, like if, you know, your physio, you're a local kinesiologist, your physician can also comment on that because there are some specifics that may be post-injury or post-medical intervention that you might need, but that would be very individual specific. As a whole, stick to the basics, don't overwhelm yourself, would be my recommendation.
That's great. Thank you so much. So because we are over time, I have put the link to the prize draw in the chat as well again. So just a very big thank you to both Ergotron and Acclaim Ability Management for coming and sharing your expertise with us today. So once again, please, if you haven't already, scan the QR code and enter into our draw and join our desk size session that's at 2 o'clock today, as well as 10 and 2 o'clock tomorrow. And thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.